There is a very unsettling horror in losing your grasp on reality, to have your mind slowly eaten away by false memories, to be overcome by delusions as your own identity begins to blur. It is a very terrifying thing to experience. But in the medium of anime, no piece of work has ever come close to capturing this form of horror, except for the 1997 anime film Perfect Blue. It follows the story of our main character Mima, a Japanese pop idol who decides to retire from her group with the goal of pursuing a new career as an actress. She wants to let go of her former image of being an idol, so to take her first step forward into the world of showbiz. Luckily, she lands a role in a well-known crime drama TV show, but it is when the pressures from her own career begins to build up that her mind gradually starts to break as she is subjected from one disturbing ordeal to the next. This all starts on the day Mima announces her retirement when a fan tells her this. She feels unnerved remembering those words, wondering if someone is watching her at this very moment. But as she would soon discover, Mima's room is a website that at first glance she passes it off as a fan-made web page dedicated to writing about her life and experiences, kind of like an online diary. However, as the details written on the website begin to exactly resemble her own daily life, from the way she steps out of a train to the things she buys at a grocery store, Mima starts to feel uneasy as she reads all of this, and gradually she becomes paranoid of her surroundings, frightened at the possibility that there is someone stalking her every move. And as Mima's paranoia starts to take over her work life, she starts to hallucinate a man that follows her wherever she goes, without knowing for sure if this entity is actually real or has the intent to hurt her. But what happens next is what pushes her towards a tipping point. One day, Mima is asked to act out a scene that consists of her stripping in front of a male audience where she will then be assaulted by the men afterwards. One of her managers hears this and rejects the role since it ruins the pure image of the idol that she once was. But since Mima wants to finally let go of that persona she once had, she accepts the role willingly. But what unfolds next is a very uncomfortable scene that, although is merely acted, becomes a traumatic experience for her. Yet, Mima puts on a strong face in front of her manager as if she's not affected by what she did. But upon reaching home, she begins to break down as the pressure and regret of acting in such an obscene role weighs heavy on her shoulders. And this internal conflict creates a rift in her identity from the idol she once was and the striving actress she now is. But the true horror is when that alternate persona begins acting on its own. And that is when Mima begins to be tormented by a hallucination of her former self, mocking her for acting in such an obscene role. It degrades her for being a filthy actress and not the pure idol that everyone once loved. And the more Mima struggles to pursue her career, the more that her delusions plague her everyday life. There is such a strange yet powerful horror in seeing another version of you that contradicts your very being, that makes you question your true identity as a person, to manipulate you into regretting the decisions you make. It is pure psychological torment for anyone to experience, but it only worsens for Mima as she contemplates the burdens she has to undergo just to succeed as an actress. However, while her mental state falls into decline, she begins to star in a more significant role in a TV show. But this leads Mima to experience something far worse than anything before, losing her grasp on reality. After messing up a scene during filming, Mima decides to meet up with her former idol group, where she comes face to face with her alternate persona smiling at her. This not only frightens Mima, but upon seeing it run away, she chases after it tirelessly, hoping to find out the truth behind this illusion of her former self. She knows deep inside that this person she chases after is not real, but in her eyes this doppelganger is a false impersonation that betrays her true self. And so Mima continues to run outside under the pouring rain, but finds herself in the middle of a road about to be hit by a truck. Everything flashes white and she suddenly finds herself waking up in bed, completely unharmed. After experiencing this, Mima talks to one of her managers as she discusses the terrifying experiences she's been having. And just as this happens, she snaps out of it and realizes she is in the same scene she filmed the other day. Mima's horrified at what just happened, but as she contemplates her situation, her vision flashes white and she immediately finds herself waking up in bed yet again. But the effect this has on her becomes so drastic. As Mima begins to lose her sense of place, she shows no recollection of the days before. She is incapable of separating reality from what is merely delusion, as if the very life she is living right now is not real. To feel hollow and lost amongst memories that never happened, and to not remember what actually did, is a horrifying experience in itself. And this affects her so much to the point that she crushes a cup just to see if the blood dripping from her hands is actually real and not some mere illusion. When in the face of uncertainty, we humans instinctively seek out the truth. But when we chase after it and seem to be nowhere close to reaching it, we inevitably feel ignorant and helpless. We doubt ourselves entirely, and that is the same horrific ordeal that Mima can never seem to escape out of. And this form of horror is captured flawlessly by the film, as it utilizes sudden cuts and white flashes to abruptly transition from one scene to the next, simulating the frightening distortion in Mima's memories as they happen one after the other without any given order. The film's cinematography is used greatly to showcase how her interactions with people are blending in together into one singular experience, showing the viewer how difficult it is for Mima to distinguish her own personal life from the fictitious character she plays within the show. And this is shown when Mima wakes up one day and hears that a model photographer she worked for was found brutally stabbed to death in his home. She is horrified by the news. But as Mima tries to get dressed, she opens her closet and finds a bag of clothes covered in blood. And you can witness the fear in her expression as she anxiously second-guesses herself if there is perhaps a darker, more sinister side to her personality. You see, the character Mima plays as Yoko Takakura suffers from dissociative identity disorder, which causes her to have memory gaps and a murderous split personality. And since Mima's mind is being eaten away by false memories, her character's narrative starts to intertwine with her own life, believing that perhaps Yoko Takakura's actions are actually her own. Deep down, she knows she would never commit such a brutal act of murder, but it is that question of, was it actually me, that terrifies Mima to her soul. Perfect Blue is a film that not only unveils the dark truths about the world of showbiz, but it also captures how the pressures and expectations of working in such an industry can slowly break a person's mind. It also masterfully curates such an extremely rare form of psychological horror that no anime after decades of its release has ever been able to replicate. The horror of not knowing what is real.